Hi, everyone, and aloha. Welcome to the 42nd Annual Hawaii International Film Festival presented by Halekulani and our discussion today with the filmmakers of the University Shorts program. My name is Jen May Pastores, and I'm the Education and Outreach Manager at HIFF. I have the pleasure of speaking with each of the directors here. But before we begin our conversation, the team at HIFF would like to acknowledge the land of Hawaii and the occupation of ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Native Hawaiian people of the Kanaka Maoli. With gratitude, we honor the Aina and the generations who steward it. I also have a few announcements. For up-to-date information on additions to our program and the full schedule of films, events, HIFF Talk Story sessions, and Q&As, please visit our website at hiff.org. And a reminder that all of the films featured in the University Shorts program are eligible for the Hawaii News Now Audience Award. To participate in our Hawaii News Audience Award voting, please cast your vote online at watch.hiff.org on our streaming apps by voting with the 5-star films on the films page. Films you watch in theaters will also have a ballot available for you to vote. So please vote for your favorite narrative, documentary, short, or student film. And mahalo to Hawaii News Now for their support. All right, so let's get started and let's meet our filmmakers. We're going to start first with Ian with the film Cringe Kid Kyle, the musical. Ian, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your film?
Hi, thank you, Jen. Cringe Kid Kyle the Musical is a short musical comedy about Kyle, the humiliated face of a viral meme who is trying to win the affection of his hotshot gaming classmate. It is the first musical that I've had the pleasure of making, and also the final short film of my undergraduate career. That would not have been possible without a tremendous amount of help from a lot of different people and organizations. It was a pleasure getting to work on it with a fellow music student, Justin Gard, who wrote and composed all of the songs.
Yeah, it was a great feat being able to do a musical, and I loved the songs, and it's just an adorable story. Would you like to add anything on what sort of inspired writing a musical or directing a musical?
Interesting. Honestly, it was kind of a selfish move on my part. Justin and I met and wrote this during the middle of lockdown. It was earlier 2021. It was January 2021 when we started to work on this together, and I just really missed live theater. So, I guess part of the backstory too is I don't write music, is the thing. So the only reason I was able to even do this was because I met Justin Gard. Which kind of was just a really lucky chance meeting. Not chance meeting. It was so in the fall of 2020, while we were still going through that first whole semester of online schooling, the arts department sent out, it was like a spreadsheet with a questionnaire, and they to try and help students make connections during the pandemic that you would have ordinarily been able to make in person. I was going to delete that, but then I thought, well, I really like musicals. I always have, and I would really like to make one, but I don't know how to write. So I filled out the questionnaire, and then at the beginning of the next semester in spring, Justin saw that and he reached out to me. And then after looking at all of his work so far, I realized that we had the same goofy sense of humor. And I threw this very random idea at him about video games and the meme that I'm sure most of us here will recognize, Bad Luck Brian, which inspired the character. He took that he came back and we met again the next week, and he had already written me a song, and we just took off from there.
Awesome. Wow, that's very cool. I love that. It's a very fun musical, and again, congrats in having your film at HIFF. Next, I'd love for Zoe to introduce her film Home. Zoe, could you share a little bit more about Home?
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Home started from my very first impression of Hawaii. As I said, I'm an international exchange student, and I came here this year. Sometimes people ask me, what was your biggest culture shock in Hawaii? And I always say definitely wild chickens, because it's not very common in my country to see like chickens everywhere on the road. So I think I didn't really had a chance to face the chicken as an animal before, because my society usually promote chicken as a meat rather than an animal. So what's more surprising for me was that people here even don't care about these chickens in the road. So it was not a big deal for them. So I thought maybe chickens are like pigeons here. However, there were some like differences compared to other countries' pigeons. Unlike pigeons in the big city, I felt that people in Hawaii are more friendly to these creatures, even though they are eating like domestic chickens at the same time. So I decided to follow this weird relationship. And while I was filming this documentary, I realized that this can be a more subtle and maybe political issue than I thought. I think this kind of weird status of wild chickens can tell a lot of stories about this society, the dynamics regarding like openness or hospitality and embracement kind of thing. So yeah, this experience was very thought-provoking for myself as well. So I hope people who watch this short doc can feel the same thing. And hopefully at the end of the film, I hope they can be a little more aware of human or non-human beings that are easily marginalized in this society in spite of their huge populations.
Yeah, definitely. I think your documentary is very fun and informative to watch. Even the voice narrator, I love who you casted for that, just because it had a very Dave Attenborough kind of tone to it. But I love how you balance humor, but also telling the story of chickens and how the communities around it kind of coexist with the chickens. So great job, Zoe.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, can I please invite Debbie to talk about her film Kites?
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm the director and writer of Kites. I made this film in the fall of 2020 for my ACM 420 class. It's been a long time coming just because production took a little bit longer, but my film follows a girl named Haru who goes on an adventure with a couple of magic kites. And this film was inspired by a song that I listened to a lot. It's also by a DJ named Grind Pirate, and he also with the same title, Kites, and he was gracious enough to let me use the song for my film, which is amazing because I was listening to this song over and over again while I was creating the film. And yeah, it just means a lot to me to finally be here in HIFF, and it's been something that I've really wanted to bring to the big screen. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Again, your animation is beautiful. I love the story, and I just was curious if you could talk a little bit about the landscape in the film and the meeting of the kites.
Oh, of course. So I was born and raised in Hawaii, but I'm, born to two Korean immigrants. They mean a lot to me. My culture, my heritage means a lot to me. So of course it came naturally to me. If I'm making a film, I want my protagonist, the setting, everything to just be aligned with who I am. It's a little selfish, but I just grew up with, always feeling affinity towards characters that look like me, who even talk like me, or who could even speak my language. Like that's something that I always cherished as a kid. Some of the inspirations was definitely like Studio Ghibli, of course, and just, of course, Korean landscapes. I took a lot of inspiration from whatever my parents told me as I was younger, and I visited Korea a lot. I was never born and raised there, but I do cherish like my family and my heritage. It means a lot to my identity. So yeah.
That's really awesome. Well, thanks again. And we're excited that you have kites at HIFF.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna go with Ian next with his film Ascent. Ian, can you tell us a little bit more about your film?
Of course, yeah. Hey guys, so I made Ascent earlier this year for my cinematic production class at HPU. And it follows the story of one of my friends from back home who's like a rock climber, and her like kind of journey of like getting into the sport and then like getting other people into it as well. It's just like kind of like highlighting the emotional side behind the sport and like kind of demystifying it, making it not this like people that like climb these, you know, epic cliffs and stuff, and kind of like turning it into like a spiritual thing, like what it gives to them, what it does for them, and how like getting other people into that and making a community around that can be really fulfilling. And I didn't climb growing up myself, but I kind of fell into it later in life and met a lot of cool friends through it. And then I've seen it happen time and time again with other people. So it's just something I wanted to bring to light.
Very cool. I have to ask, what was it like filming with all the gear? You know, having to climb, you know, cliffs and trying to get those shots.
It was like kind of hairy at times, but I didn't go like, there's this thing you can do called jugging a line, which is where you basically like belay yourself up a cliff, and that way you can control your altitude and basically go up with them, but you're like climbing yourself. I didn't have to do that too much for this film, but it's something I've done like on my own time in later projects, and that's pretty cool. So I don't know, wasn't too hard.
Well, that's awesome though. It's a beautiful film. I love your main lead character and her story, and her love and passion for rock climbing. So thanks so much.
Glad you liked it.
Great. Now we're going to go next to Florence. Florence, could you tell us a little bit about your film, Look Up to the Stars?
Yeah, so Look Up to the Stars is actually based on a true story. Yeah, I lost my mom to COVID-19 on October 2020, and so yeah, I think I wanted to make a film about it when I was trying to figure out coming back to school and figure out what classes I wanted to take. I think cinematography class is where my professor introduced, you know, how she wrote poetry and how she used that poetry in film. And I've always used writing as an outlet. And so I decided not to take that class because I was, you know, that was still during the time that I lost my mom. And so I wrote a poem based on, I know I wanted to make a film, and that poem was based, sorry, I'm all over the place right now. This is kind of a lot to unpack.
It's all good. No worries.
Yeah. So after that class, I just started thinking about a poem that I wanted to make about, you know, the experience. And I wrote a poem called Empty Spaces, and that's about, you know, finding just a silhouette of your loved one around the places they used to be. And I could see that forming in my mind, and I wanted to use that in a film, and I got to make it in my 410 narrative class. And yeah, it just follows Raven, like, kind of dealing with that grief and trying to confront the truth about what happened.
Yeah, well, Look Up to the Stars is it's a very touching story, and I know it's a very personal story, and I think it's a great way to honor your mom. You know, the use of mirrors in the film as well, and how that kind of went back into the past and trying to show what's in the present and what she's dealing with. Yeah, so good job on the symbolism as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next up, let's go with Justin. Justin, can you tell us a little bit more about My Dog Has Fleas?
So My Dog Has Fleas is like a short Indigenous film that came from a proverb, Return from the Backbone, which everyone in my class, which was an Indigenous filmmaking class, we randomly drew it from a container of proverbs, and then we had to draft a poem using nature and visuals and sounds that like came to us as we like thought on the kauna of it. And we kind of had to form our own personal connection and meaning with it. And then when I thought of Return to the Backbone, I thought of the most obvious thing, which is like culture. Because even though I was born and raised, I never really identified with any particular culture. And I also had sort of out of place feelings living in Hawaii, but like not being a native Hawaiian myself, which like I totally missed the point about what it means to be local here. And I also chose music as the medium of connection because it's such a universal language that can be used not only to communicate, but also enjoy and bring communities together, because I do orchestra myself. So I thought that was something cool to add in. These were supposed to be non-linear micro shorts that were 2 to 5 minutes long. And I came to class with a 17-minute long linear cut. And my professor wasn't like too happy about it, like on paper, but then when we worked through all the cuts, it ended up working out. And I didn't really expect it to go as far as it did because it was supposed to be like a small side project, like a midterm sort of thing. But once festival season came around, I started getting free coupons to enter festivals, and I was lucky enough to get into most of them, especially since this was like a $0 budget film. So when it went through the festival circuits, I actually lost money, but it was all a really like super unique experience. And I think it's like really special because everyone featured in that film are all my friends, are my close family friends. So I didn't use any actors, but that's really special to me because I've always grown up making little videos with all my friends. And my first film that got attention in school, I guess, was something that I made with my friends. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I love the story of you know, your lead character reconnecting to the Aina and to her culture, and finding that connection back with her family. I really love the scene when they're putting together. It's believe the mother and the daughter, and they're sitting down outside in the ground, and they're putting together. Actually, forget what it's called, but could you tell us a little bit more about that scene and the sort of significance of it?
So the thing they're putting together is called a ho'okupu, and that's it's like an offering. And what I got from my cultural advisor is it's pretty like a universal offering. So she actually got the materials from they were homegrown from a friend. So we made a picture ho'okupu, which we brought in the forest, and then we had a prop ho'okupu, which we put together on camera. And the cool thing was we actually used those offerings. So when we filmed in the forest, we left it there as like a thanks for letting us film here in this space. And then the prop ho'okupu was given to a teacher friend of hers that to bless her classroom. But basically the significance of it, I guess, is it's kind of like putting her work and effort into making this offering to the land, and she's trying to reconnect with her family and her home, and she's trying to have open arms for them in hopes that they can do the same for her. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, it was very lovely to include. Thank you for that. And we're glad to have My Dog Has Fleas at HIFF. Congrats, Kim.
Thanks.
Hey. And last but not least, I'd love to have Justin Gerald talk about his film Tala.
Of course. Thank you, Jinmei. I want to begin by acknowledging that it's Filipino American History Month, or FAM, as they call it. So happy FAM to everyone here and everyone at home watching who identifies as Filipino American. And that's actually a good segue into introducing my film, Tala, which is the story of a Filipino family grappling with the grave consequences of a domestic abuse incident. It follows two sisters that are forced into conflict about the morality of their father's actions. So I consider Tala part of my way of sharing my heart with the world. It's a deeply personal film inspired directly by my childhood and my Filipino culture. All the characters are based on my family members, and the character Tala herself has all of my childhood traits. So I consider it semi-autobiographical in that sense. In creating the film, I was inspired by the words of my high school creative writing teacher, Professor Sarah Johnson. She inspired us to write about what makes us most uncomfortable, because that's where your strongest work lies, because you have the strongest feelings about that topic. And what made me most uncomfortable at the time was my father wound, as they call it. I felt uncomfortable about the fact that my biological father had abandoned my family in my youth, and ashamed at my inability to navigate those complex emotions in a way that was sensitive to the needs of other people who were hurting. So I drew on what I was feeling, mostly desired by a longing for intense catharsis. And 15 drafts later and 5 shoot days later, the version of Talus screening at HIFF today was born. So that's the story of Tala.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Justin. I know the two sisters and their bond really carries the film and the story. I was actually curious if I remember on the cigarette, the pack of cigarettes, there was like a symbol on it. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course. So the symbols that appear on the cigarettes are the same ones that appear in the opening credits of the film, the opening title. And those are actually characters in a pre-colonial Philippine script called Baybayin. So prior to the introduction of the English alphabet in the Philippines, that was the script that pre-colonial Filipinos wrote in. And the two characters that are there are the characters Ta and La. So when you look at the cigarettes and the title of the film, you're just looking at the word itself, Tala, which means bright star. And I actually took the names of the sisters from these demigoddesses in pre-colonial Philippine mythology. So Tala is the demigoddess of the stars, and her sister Hanan is the demigoddess of the morning. So that's what the characters Ta and La on the cigarette box and the main title allude to.
Wow, that's great. I love that. Again, thank you so much, Justin, for having Tala at HIFF. We're so glad to be showing it. I would love to ask if anyone in the group would like to share any mahalos. Debbie, go ahead.
I'd just like to thank my crew. I did this not just by myself. I had an amazing crew, my producers, my animators. I'd like to thank Grand Pirate, especially for letting me use his music. It means a lot that somebody, I just emailed him and he was like, yeah, go for it. And it really means the world that he's helping me with that. I'd like to thank my backers from our GoFundMe, of course. Like, it's been a long time, they donated to us and we met our goal in such a short amount of time, and I haven't forgotten that. So I really appreciate it to everyone, and just everyone that supported me with this film, who has supported our crew. It means a lot, and thank you.
I would like to thank the Tala cast and crew, as well as our donors, for their generous support of the film in lending their, time and just talent to this project. I would also like to thank the community that supported me back home on the island of Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands. They paved the way for me to be here, not just at UH, but also at HIFF. So I wouldn't be here without them. And this film is just as much for my community back home as it is for my family and for the cast and crew. So to the people back home on Saipan, and it's been a while since I've said this, so I hope I don't butcher it. Ondongkulu na si Zuus Maasi, maraming salamat po, and thank you.
Just wanted to thank, shout out to the Kanoas and then the Katas, because they were really generous with their time. They could have just been like, I don't want to be on camera, but they're like, yeah, sure, man. And definitely my professor Lizette Flannery and my class for being hard on me, and they just kept telling me to revise until it got cut down to that 12 minutes. Yeah, that was really good. And then yeah. And then thanks for especially someone that wasn't their family member, Devin Chang. He was the main musician. He did the singing and the playing, and he's like a total godsend. It's like, I was like, oh, I need a ukulele player. And he was like, oh, we got a professional ukulele player and a singer. So that like totally worked out. So totally shout that him out. But yeah, everyone was like super, I'm super grateful for everyone's involvement and helping me with this big chimp project.
Okay, so this was a film for my documentary class with a very small crew. It was just me and my classmate. I want to say thank you to my cinematographer, Daniel Ishao Chin, and my instructor as well, Professor Scott Schimmel. He was being a great advisor for the plot. Also, I was very lucky to find my interviewees because I don't have much connections here. I met most of the interviewees by chance. I just ran into them accidentally. I'd like to thank everyone for being so supportive. I wouldn't go through all of this like without your help. And lastly, I really want to appreciate HIFF gave me a chance to screen my film at the festival, even though I'm just a visiting student. So yeah, thank you so much.
So it was like definitely hard for me to find my footing in ACM. I was always more focused on like writing and directing, maybe even like producing a little bit. And so I just wanted to thank my crew for always being there every step of the way to help me make my film come to life, and also to my cast and also the donors, and especially to my mom. I got the decision for the selection shortly after her death anniversary this year. So that's how I kind of knew that she was watching over me and also watched the film in a sense. And yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry, just really
No
quick.
worries.
I almost forgot the most important, my professors, Professor Brittany Biggs and Laura Margulies. I love you guys. Thank you for always mentoring me so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes. Shout out to the professors. All right, cool. If no one else, Ian, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to thank my friends for willing to let me film them and let me share their stories. And I'd like to thank my professor, Pete Britos, for kind of like encouraging me to pursue this thing. I didn't really think I'd get in, so I'm glad that I gave it a shot. So yeah, mahalos to them.
Awesome. All right, and then last but not least, Ian.
Yes. Where to start? I'd like to thank the staff at HIFF for giving us this opportunity. I'd like to thank the faculty at ACM, especially Anne, for giving us the green light and for all of the support in making this happen. I'd like to thank the team, the crew, the cast for their dedication and many, 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 many hours spent with my craziness. I'd like to thank my family for all the support at home. The donors, most of them, which were probably my family, for their support as well, and all the extra help from organizations. I know Duke's. Shout out to Duke's for providing us a few meals on some of our weekends. Saxon for the help with the basic stunt work. The Melee program at HCC for their help in putting together the songs, and HIMB at Coconut Island for letting us shoot on location with them. I'd also want to thank HMI for being super generous and spotting us with some of their gear on more than a few of our shooting weekends. That was it.
Awesome. Thank you all for watching this discussion today, and a special mahalo to our HIFF sponsors, board of directors, our HIFF Ohana members, our volunteers, interns, and our supporters. If you are able to, please consider donating to HIFF. Every dollar counts towards keeping HIFF presenting great content like this in the future. And to learn more and donate, please visit hiff.org/donate. And this now concludes our talk with the University Shorts directors. Thank you all for donating your time to be a part of this year's program. I loved our conversation and your insight. You guys are such a cool group. And on behalf of HIFF, mahalo nui loa and take care.